Hey everyone, welcome to episode 34 of the Ceres podcast. In this episode, I talked to Chef Stephen Terry, the Patron and head chef of the Hardwick in Abergavenny. Stephen has worked for some notable names over the years: Marco Pierre White, Nairn, Michel Roux Junior, Allan Passard, Peyton, and many other great roles, including him buying out the walnut tree in Abergavenny before moving on to the Hardwick. I'm not just giving Stephen's book a shameless plug, but his book, Inspired By, is pretty unique. It's the perfect coffee table book with great stories and really crisp photos. And for those of you that don't know, the Ceres podcast is brought to you by Ceres Pure Food Innovation. And to find out more, you can visit worldofceres.com, where you can find out more about our products, read about our blogs, or check out our recipe ideas. And now for the gentle prod. If you haven't, it's really worth subscribing to the Ceres podcast so you get regular updates. And if you could give us a review and a rating in Apple Podcasts, that'll be really cool too. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this episode with Stephen Terry. Stephen Terry, welcome to the Ceres podcast.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Oh, fantastic. So for those that don't know you, and there ain't going to be many, but we've always got to do like a little bit of an introduction. So you're Stephen Terry.
Can I just interrupt there?
You can.
You say for those that don't know me, then obviously, a lot of people in the industry sort of do know me, and you think, well, just because you've done a bit of telly or whatever. I mean, some people watch a bit of telly, some people don't. This year I was doing the Pub in the Park Festival. I do it every year with Tom Kerridge and lovely chefs. It's an amazing thing. And I was, you sign up and do some demos. So I've got like a demo tent. So I was just making my way casually over to the demo tent. I was on in like 10 minutes time, and there's this lovely guy called Alan Thatcher, who's the home ec there, and Becky, and they get it all sorted for you. And I'm walking by this couple, and she's got this program. She's like, there's some guy called Stephen, and I could just hear her as I was walking past, There's some guy Stephen shows like that. Never heard of him, like that. And I just walked past this chuckling, and I think, why would you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, and some people like that. Like my brother, I've got a twin brother, and he said to me the other day, he said, I was doing something. He said, did they say, is that famous chef? I said, Pete, no one says that around here. I said, I'm just a dickhead who's got a restaurant outside of town who they think who's loaded and is a millionaire. Do you mean? Like that, and there's like, and people don't say that around here. They're like, that's that.
It's just that chef, yeah.
Yeah,
got
it's
a restaurant over,
like Matt Tebber, does Saturday Kitchen. He's local. People see him waitress. They don't go, oh my God, it's Matt Tebber. They're like, oh, that's Matt.
I think wherever you're local, people just sort of acclimatise, isn't it? It's just like,
it was like, I'm sure if you lived in some, there's people like, like say Phil Collins lives in Switzerland, isn't he? I'm sure he goes and buys a pint of milk somewhere sometimes. They go, we got it's Phil Collins. Say,
no, but
all right, Phil.
You're right, Phil.
Gold top again, is it? Yeah.
No, it's true though. It's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah. People just go out,
Yeah.
So,
you don't. No one just claps everywhere you go, do they? No.
Certainly don't. No, not in my case, anyway. But yeah. So there's a few people who know me.
So for those that don't know you,
you're just about to get to know a bit more about me.
You're Stephen Terry, chef patron of the Hardwick in Abergavenny. Have I said that right? I always add a bit of Welsh twang to that, Abergavenny.
Abergavenny? Oh, Abercon flip-flop. Yeah, Abergavenny, yeah.
You've worked with some of the best chefs in the world and restaurateurs.
So they told me.
So they tell you. And it's been a long, successful career. Tough one, obviously, because you're a chef. It's going to be. When you were 25 years old, you got your first Michelin star. Although, today, Michelin star is not something you want or want to be involved with. The Hardwick is often referred as one of the best gastropubs in the UK. One thing that's pretty interesting is that you've also cooked for Barack Obama at the Nato summit.
Technically, I have, yeah.
So technically. So loads of other people did.
Well, no, I did cook.
Yeah.
I did cook, but he didn't eat, which is...
Right.
It's one of those things that you lap up the column inches because I didn't get paid for it.
Yeah.
It was by,
so
by
you
the
get
government.
paid in PR, yeah.
I think they covered our costs, but you get paid in PR, exactly. The whole thing was a shit show, to be honest with you, because... And they said 2 weeks of the tasting, don't have a hissy fit or a chefy fit. And I'm like, that's cool. If you have to wait or something changes, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. These people are really important. I get it. So on the night, starter had to be on the table for 70 people. We had 3 dinners. One was on a HMS Duncan, this big new aircraft carrier in the bay. One was at this beautiful, the Royal College of Music and Drama in Cardiff. And there was the one for the main delegates that I was doing. So I had 2 head chefs doing the other 2. So one was for defence secretaries, one for foreign secretaries, and one for main delegates. So I was doing the main delegates one. So 8:30, starters on the table. Lovely menu. It was all Welsh products. It was Welsh smoked salmon and crab and this and that and everything. What time did Obama arrive? 9:20. Flew in, the Bararaca, Obama show, all the lights going off, and the helicopters and this and that. The motorcade comes around, 20-car motorcade for one dude. Ambulance, this, that, and all American stuff, all flown in. So we served the food an hour after it had to be on the table waiting to save to him. So that wasn't amazing. Because the waiter staff couldn't sort of like hang in on and it had to pass through really quickly because there was obviously sensitive things being talked about. The main course was just an absolute flipping bun fight. Bang, bang, bang. It was a roast stuffed saddle of lamb. It was lovely, with Welsh asparagus. In September, we have a second growth on the Wye Valley asparagus here. So it was fresh asparagus. That was delicious, but it was, could have been nicer, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's a lot of waste for that, though, isn't it?
And dessert was a summer pudding, or late summer pudding in a jar, which was all ready to go. Had some amazing wines from the Downing Street cellars. And Obama didn't eat a bit of it. He just pushed his food around the plate because he'd already eaten in the hotel.
Yeah, he's eating everywhere he goes. Yeah, exactly.
You get it, don't you? And he's not worried about if he's eating the food. David Cameron's very complimentary. He sort of did call me into the room, and as everyone was just about to get up and naffing off, he's like, "I'd just like to say thank you to the chef." And I was like, "Thank you." And he came on and said hello, so fair enough. It's one of the good things he did do.
Yeah.
And it was great because there's a guy in the kitchen with us all day who was part of the Obama's sort of like culinary sort of security.
Yeah.
And just had this sort of suitcase with him all day that we just it was like something out of Pulp Fiction where that dude's got that suitcase at the end and all that. The waiter come in during the service and said, the president's asked for a cup of tea. And this guy made him a cup of tea from this suitcase. He brought out a flask. It was like he's diffusing a bomb the way he did it. It was all
really?
I mean, the guy's military. I mean, he was carrying a gun, but he'd worked at the Culinary Institute of America, the CIA, the other CIA.
Right. Yeah, the other CIA.
And telling us all stories about the chef at the White House and stuff. And he gave us all a box of presidential M&Ms, all red, white and blue inside.
Right.
Got it all framed in the Louvre.
I saw that. I wonder what that was, yeah.
And he was quite a good dude, and it was really interesting. But, and he chose at random which dish the president would get at each course. Because if you're going to mess about with something,
you do it,
clearly you weren't. But I mean, if there is an opportunity there for someone, to do that, he was picking one at random, so you'd have to put something in everything. So
everyone gets the shit.
But and then we had to it was lockdown, no mobile signal, no one could leave the building until Obama naffed off. So my 2 chefs finished an hour and a half before me, and they were waiting by the car for an hour and a half before I got back.
Wow.
So I mean, it's a great experience, but
it's a great experience on paper, but the realness of it, it's actually just exactly. It is what it is. Yeah. No, it's interesting. But one thing that really impressed me was your book. And you played it down a little bit when you gave it me, and I was, I'll just have a read, see what you think. But I really enjoyed it. I found myself like flicking through it and laughing, and then again, it's that realness, it's like the fact that you read it and you're being completely honest. So you're just sort of going through it. It's a story.
It's the opportunity. I mean, I've read other people's books or bits of them, and I'm like, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Or that didn't happen, or that's a little bit conservative of the truth, or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, I was as honest as I could be, because I couldn't be as honest as I wanted to be, because it was sort of came into the libelous sort of. Yeah. Because other people might have thought, actually, I'm not really cool about that, Yeah. And I said to the guy I wrote with, this lovely guy called Andy, and he said, "Well, I know it's true." He said, "Because I believe you." And I said, "Well, look, so and so was there. They saw it." And he said, "But you can't prove it."
No.
He said,
exactly. And it's not worth having that sort of argument. It's not worth.
And also, you think you can word it in a way that you leave the suggestion there that something happened, and you can work it out for yourself. Sliding doors moments.
You don't have to be a genius to figure it out.
And to be honest, sometimes do people really need to know the real nasty nitty gritty or something? Exactly. You don't really, because you can put the suggestion there, and people can make out of it what they want. But it was lovely to have the opportunity, because if the book never started off like that at all.
But I think also what was nice was all the work. Usually a book's got one foreword. This had loads of paragraphs from great friends of yours, and you read it and you just think, I'm sure they're all friends, or you've met them all, but you've come across them, or you like what they do.
Yeah, for different reasons, different degrees, because there were 2 forewords, one by Oliver Peyton, who I worked with for some time in London, I have great respect for. and one for Simon Wright, who was the ex-head inspector of the AA Guide.
Yeah, I just got his book.
Yeah, and he's a really great friend. He's so pro Wales, and he's got a fantastic restaurant in Wales. His family are Welsh. So yeah, it was nice to ask them both to do the forward. But the other part that you're referring to is I asked about 100 odd people what inspires them, because the book's called Inspired By. It was just nice, and I said to them, I'm doing this book. It's it's about what inspires me. What inspires you? And it doesn't have to be food related. It's like, well, as someone in the industry, what inspires you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think every single response was pretty much food related, apart from one. That was from Russell Norman, and he wrote about this amazing surgeon that saved his daughter's eyesight after a freak accident with a plastic hanger.
Wow.
It was broken, poked in the eye, and and all's good now. But yeah, and I still meet people now and think, God, I should have asked them. I think you just at the time you're thinking,
That's a good book, and I think it just feels like a labour of love for you. Like
it was,
You could tell, like, there's probably not going to be much financial benefit out of it.
No, not at all. And to be honest with you, I give more copies away than I sell, to be honest with you, but I like that. Because I meet people. This guy came here the other day, and he was from London. He's very familiar with Cornerstone, where I was saying I went there and this and that and everything. And lovely guy. He was a petrochemical someone. He'd made a lot of money and retired at the age of 50 or something, and he just eats in nice places. Nice. And I just felt a real sort of kindred spirit with him, and we were talking for ages, and I thought, I want him to have one of my books. I don't want him to buy one. I want to give him one. Yeah. And it was nice,
You're a bit of a giver then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get more pleasure out of getting stuff for other people than I do receiving. Like shopping for other people or whatever. I can't be asked myself. I just get something on my.
You just get by, yeah. Quick Amazon job.
I know what I like, I'm like, say, for a certain pair of jeans, I'll just buy the same ones again and again and again, because I don't want to look for anything else.
I'm the same.
I'm like that in everything. Yeah, if I like that, I'll just have another one, thanks.
Play it safe. So over the years, you've sort of worked at quite a few notable places, and just to run them off, not in order, because I haven't done that much research. You worked at Harvey's Marco Pierre White.
Yep.
Nick Nairn's Brayville Old Mill.
Yep.
Michel Roux Le Gavroche. Was that under the junior then?
Yes. Albert was still around. But I was there for a year, and he did 2 services in a year. But he was doing other stuff. That was he'd made a point of doing that then.
Yeah, and then Les Roches, is that how you say that?
Les Roches.
Les Roches.
In the Rocks, down in near Saint-Tropez.
Yep, and then L'Arpège.
Yeah.
And that's Allan Passard.
Yeah.
And then Canteen, which was obviously Michael Caine and Marco Pierre White. Well, it's obvious, it's many. And then Oliver Peyton at Coast. I'm sure there's many others.
My career started at Barnfield College in Luton, and I was very, very fortunate. Tom Aitkins, the chef, and his twin brother, his name escapes me, Rob, will probably say the same, because they had the same college lecturer at another college later on, because I'm older than them, when he moved to Norwich. But I had this guy called Paul Ward. He taught, so there was 2 years in our college then, and the year I finished, the college trebled in size.
Oh, really?
New campus, trebled the intake. He left. He went back to Norwich, where he taught Tom and his brother, Rob. And so this guy, Paul Ward, we had him. He didn't teach first years because he just saw them as a pain in the arse, really. Because we were really, and but he was quite scary, Wardy. You'll look out for Wardy. Oh my God. And anyway, we went back in the second year, and he was our form tutor. It was 50-50 because there's only 2 classes anyway, and we had him. And I was like, oh my God. And then myself and my mate Tim were a bit sort of like, we like the ladies and we like to mess about a little bit. So we've been brought to his attention.
All right.
But actually, do you know what? He was like, he's very similar looking in the way he dressed and the way he physically looked to Anton Mosiman. He had the tall hat, the toque, like the really nice one, not the paper one. He had the white shirt, the bow tie, the chef's jacket, moustache. I mean, maybe, I can't think of it, maybe he was sort of modelling himself a little bit, because that was the same era. And he was like, London, you've got to go to London, the only place, because we were like an hour north of London. So I did, and it was on his recommendation, that's what I did. And I think if I'd never done that, that was a massive sliding doors moment for me. And the first job I had was in a restaurant called Brinkley's in Hollywood Road in Chelsea, where the head chef, Graham Day, lovely guy, he's chef of about 3 or 4 restaurants in a group now. He's actually been here at the Hardwick, which is lovely when people come back into your life. He was looking for staff, and myself and another lad, who I'm still in contact with now, he sends me complete and utter filth on WhatsApp. Cheers my day up sometimes. I'm going to incriminate him. Steve Ashby, you know who you are. So he's got a building company now, And he and I moved to London together, and we went and worked at this restaurant, Brinkley's, because the head chef, he's a previous student at the college, and he contacted the college, and we went, yeah, we fancy that. So we moved to this flea-ridden flat in North come to me now, sort of like South London. My parents, remember, they moved us in, and my mum telling me later on in life that she cried all the way home because it was just such a flipping flea pit. I didn't spend long there because my girlfriend at the time, I was also went to college with, had got a job in a London hotel and lived in, and I actually shacked up with her, and I was there that often that the security guard thought I worked there. But so it was a good opportunity because it was cooking to order. I was working in a small kitchen, and the previous chef to this chap Graham was been Anthony Royal Thompson.
Okay.
So it was a good place, and he'd gone on to Menage a Trois, so it was cooking to order. You had to move your ass, so I know that was good. But it got to a point where they had a couple of wine bars and they started putting us in those, and it wasn't really for me. I mean, the people who owned it, John and Jenny Brinkley, and again, I've bumped into them in town, since, and they're lovely people. And that's business, it's either for you or it isn't. So you you look for something else. And when I left college, I wrote about 30-odd letters to get a job in London. And all of them came back to me, bar one, saying, not enough experience. Like, well, no shit, Sherlock, I'm writing from college. I mean, we could, work it out. And I had one from the Regent's Palace Hotel, which again, ironically, later in life is above the Atlantic Bar and Grill, where I was executive chef for a short period of time, working for Oliver Peyton. I just knew then at an early age it was all carving and it wasn't for me. So I got this job at Brinkley's. After that, I revisited some of the places I'd applied to, went to the Mayfair Hotel, Intercontinental. Well, Billy King was the chef there when I first went there, and he went to overseas. And then Michael Coco was an absolute ledge. He teaches at Acton College, or was. He was a chef, and that's where I met Gordon. He was. I went and worked in a coffee shop underneath this dude called Johnny. I was there for a couple of weeks, and he said, Johnny was like, I think you need to be down in the main kitchen, because I wasn't finding it too difficult, and I was very competent. So we went in the main kitchen and went down into the garde-manger, as they call it, the larder. And there was this young lad there with his neckerchief all round, practically strangling himself with his toggle and his white cloths going around the kitchen. That was Gordon, like man on a mission in a hurry and that. And our relationship actually started off on the wrong foot, because I'd been there a few days or something, maybe a week or so, and used to go down this ramp and into this big walk-in fridge. And I went down there and I went to get something, and Gordon followed me in and just flipping pinned me up against the wall, and someone was saying something about something. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I said, I haven't said anything. I said, if I've got something to say, I'll tell you, Well, I haven't got a problem.
So you didn't even know the guy?
No, I knew him to say hello to, because we worked in the same area, but we hadn't become friends.
Yeah, right, mate, yeah.
So that's how our relationship started off, later on in life, we're each other's best men at weddings, buying property together and stuff, So that was good. And then, again, you work in... Someone asked me the other day, I was looking at an old interview, and they said, what's the biggest blag you've ever seen, And I was like, the sauce chef at the Mayfair Hotel wasn't a sauce chef, it was a demi-chef. Had cooked all these fillet steaks. They weren't cooked whole in a slice, it was cooked individual for a banquet for, say, 200. And they weren't shagged, but they were overcooked. So this head chef, the chef de partie, this French guy called Dominic, who we were all shit scared of, came along, went, well done, blah, blah, blah. And he said, the sous chef's going to come along in a minute, and he's going to test these. So what he did, he cooked about 5 or 6 off perfectly, put them along the front, because he knew the sous chef was going to go, yeah, touch the ones in front, yeah, they're all right. Completely blagged it like that, doing
He got away with it.
Yeah, got away with it, like that, ledge. So I've never forgotten that. So we left there afterwards and went to work for Kennedy Brooks, a place called Braganza in Soho, very happening, over 4 floors. And Gordon and I went there, met a guy called Martin Dickinson, who's now Tim Hughes' number 2 at Caprice Holdings. Martin went for a lunch at this place never heard of, called Harvey's. Came back to Braganza and said, oh my God, we've just been to this restaurant. Him and his missus, he said, and he sort of mocked up this Naja shellfish, one of the classic early dishes. We're like, never seen food like it in our lives, even though it was just even a mock-up. And at the time, we were working straight shifts and doing lots of casual work. And one of the places we were doing casual work was a place called the Brasserie in Bellevue Road, just up the road from Harvey's.
Yeah.
And Gordon was due to do a shift. I said, well, go and knock on the door. At the time, Gordon and I bought a flat. The head chef at Braganza blagged our mortgage applications, and we bought this flat that we couldn't afford. But we had, in 2 bedrooms, we had 7 chefs sleeping, bunk beds and a double bed and someone on the couch. So we managed to pay for it. And which, oddly enough, we later sold to Angela Hartnett, and she made a fortune on it, and we sold it at rock bottom. She discovered a mezzanine floor in there, and it was made a fortune out of it, but there we are, that's life. And so Gordon and I sort of, we bought the Michelin guide thinking, what's all this Michelin thing about? And then sort of like looking at this place with stars and that, and then with the same thing, this harvesting was happening. So he went to harvest, and I went and worked at Rue Saint-Jacques in Charlotte Street.
How old were you both, roughly?
19.
Oh, okay, good.
So I went to work in Charlotte Street under Gunther Schlender, this lovely Austrian chef who had previously been head chef for Robert Carrier back in the days out in Norfolk. Yeah. And Gordon was coming home with these flipping bonkers stories about what was going on at Harvey's. You know, some of the things aren't quite repeatable, but, you know, as you can imagine, it was all kicking off and it was great. And it was like really sort of like the style of food. It was so sort of intense. And I was coming back after quite a boring day, you know, and I was like, and so he was working like long days doubles. I was doing straight shifts in a Michelin star restaurant. This is just before Harvey's won its first star. And I was like, can I come and do a day? And he's like, yeah. I'll ask Marco. So we asked him and I went and do a day on a Saturday and I was shitting myself. And Marco said nothing to me all day, totally blanked me all day. And I was like, oh, fair enough. So I got to the end of the day and he said, Marco said to me, well, if you get bored at Rue Saint-Jacques, give me a call. I said, I'll call you in the morning.
Well, he was already bored, so yeah.
Yeah, I said, can I call you in the morning? He said, yeah. So I went and saw him and I said, I'll work for nothing. He said, don't be silly. He said, I said, I'll wash it. He said, no, I can come in, and that was that. Yeah.
So you really wanted to work there? Yeah.
And what Marco did for us, or Gordon and myself respectively, because we wanted to go and work at Gavroche, which was a 3-star at the time, still should be, in my opinion. That was like, well, do your time here, and then you go. And so Gordon went, and then 6 months later I went to Gavroche.
What was it like working with Marco then? Because obviously you were
amazing.
Young, 19 years old. How long were you there for, roughly?
The first time there was 2 years, and then I went back after that. But the first time was almost 2 years to the day. Yeah, fantastic, amazing. Yeah. I mean, such a creative force. I mean, a lot of it. You know, let's all remember that you can learn from reading and seeing things. I mean, he certainly didn't. You know, the whole Netflix, all these kids now got all these amazing chess programs on Netflix and this and that with David Chang and you know blah blah blah. Anthony Bourdain. Well, none of that existed. You had some old style sort of quite restrained sort of cookery books, or you worked for someone who'd had experiences and was sort of pooling those experiences into their product, and that's what Marco did. Because remember that Marco was he'd put himself, and he wasn't fortunate. And he created his own fortune, but he worked for Raymond, he worked for Pierre, he worked for Nico, and he worked for Albert. So arguably, probably the 4 most, probably
prolific chefs.
You had Anton Mosiman up there, but then there weren't many other people who would be rivaling them. And he's done the best part of a year with most of them. And then he had this opportunity with his business partners and got the Harveys and just picked out the best of what made it his own. But those chefs saw their influences in his food. The oyster thing with Raymond and the blah blah blah. But anyway, he was so disciplined. Marco was in the way he put food on a plate. So that was a really big. The way he just you learned how to discipline yourself. That was really interesting.
What was the sort of if we look at just purely because you went there straight after? What was the difference between working at somewhere like Harvey's and Gavroche?
That's really interesting. It's so funny because Harvey's was all about the creative art. It was all about putting food on the plate, using your fingers. It wasn't about personal hygiene. Although I'm saying I did shower every day.
Yeah, you was clean.
I was clean, but I'm saying it wasn't. I wouldn't have got a bollocking if I didn't.
Yeah.
Or being clean shaven, or having, sometimes we wear a white t-shirt. I mean, back then we were wearing white t-shirts. We wore used to wear just trainers or whatever. When
so he wasn't overly bothered about sort of just perceptions and stuff like that. No.
So then going from there to the Gavroche, which was interesting because he'd been there, but he didn't sort of enforce any of that. So when I went to Gavroche, there was a lovely man there, and I didn't think it quite at the time, but a lovely man. He is a lovely man called Mark Prescott, who was the head chef underneath Michel Roux, who is an incredible man as well. And Mark, made it. He was already giving Gordon a hard time. Well, Gordon had been there 6 months, and he was caning Gordon doing. So it was like I was just the next one, because he wanted to prove a point. It's like, you think you've come from a 2-star, which Harvey's was then. You come into think you're the shit. You've been working with Marco. Maybe there was history with him and Marco. I don't know, but he made a point. So, I was on the larder when I first started there. So I used to have this lovely guy called, it was Hiro-san, this lovely Japanese lad. So service would finish, and you'd have a good sort of hour and a half clear down. And it was all very, you had to be pristine. Your irons, your whites had to be starched. Your skull cap, So I had skull cap. It was clean shaven. It's used tongs to put salad on a plate. It was like, oh my God. And he would send Hero, who we affectionately called him, he'd send Hero home at the end of the service, and I'd have to, just to make a point, no, you can go home now. You can do all this on your own like that. I'm in charge here. Doing whatever. I was like, yeah, cool.
Wow, it's just...
Do you know what I mean? And then you had, like in most places, I've got guys here now who work for me for a long time, like Potwash, Dino, who's been here like 14 years. And if someone puts something that's really dirty, they should have emptied something out of, like, no, don't, that's not Dino's job. He'll wash the empty container. You empty the crap out.
Yeah.
I think I put something into the wash-up, which is only a small little double sink in the corner of the kitchen, was really part of the kitchen. There was this guy, I can't remember his bloody name, this sort of solid West African guy, like I can't remember his name now. And he went to have a go at me, and I wasn't being a cheeky bastard, because that's not me. And he went to have a go at me, and Gordon was there, and Gordon just said, "Oh, hang on a minute, because he's the new guy. Don't start laying into his new guy." And he was, you could hit him all day long and he wouldn't fall down, sort of thing. He looked, he grabbed hold of Gordon, and Gordon said, "Oh, hang on a minute." The scuffle broke out, and they went out the kitchen into the corridor, and it all fucking shit going everywhere, and it was a bit, and they both got reprimanded and sent home for the day, and I got dragged into it, but I was like, well, I didn't actually do anything. I'm just like, but I'm like, yeah, so he was big brother sort of thing, but yeah, but it was great. I mean, I learned a lot there, that classical French foundation, I think, and it's becoming less and less these days. I know food's changing, but it'll never do anyone any harm to do that for a year or two, It's to know, it's like going to art school and learning classics.
Yeah. How did you end up getting stabbed there?
Yeah, well, it's completely my own doing, really. Myself and this also very clever Australian chap, Lucas, we used to do this thing, which is pretty gross, really, but, when it's a long day and you try and entertain yourself. So if you were going to sort of like, if you were suffering from a little bit of flatulence and fancied just, dropping your guts or anything, you would sort of turn around and grab someone and you'd put your arse against them and fart on them, doing like that, just sort of messing about. And there was this lovely young, I was probably my age really, but I mean we were all young at the time, sort of early 20s, Geraldine, and Irish girl, and she was working away at the bench, and I sort of did that to her, just because I mean girls and boys, you're all on the same level there, and she just sort of like swung me, saying, "Oh, telling me to f off," and someone just sort of swung her left arm round towards me, not realising that she had a paring knife in her hand. And it just plunged it into my buttock, do you know what I mean? And I didn't realise she'd done it, because I walked away and went, flipping out,
Didn't touch a bone or anything?
No. I went, flipping out, Joe, now I said, what'd you do there? And I looked down, there's just blood pissing out my cheek arse. I was like, she looked in horror, she went, oh my God, like bloody knife in her hand. I was like,
oh, no way.
And at the time, the Michel Roux Junior, Silvano, and another chap who was the assistant manager were having their management dinner pre-service, which we cooked for them, and Mark Prescott, and to make it even worse, cherry on the cake. So I had to go into the restaurant and tell them what I'd done and the result of what I'd done. And
you couldn't say you just slipped or anything. No, you couldn't answer the whole thing.
What's the point? You're going to make someone sorry.
It's true.
Someone's going to dog me in.
Exactly,
There were no cameras in the kitchens then.
Yeah.
So I had to go to hospital and just have a quick stitch up and came back to serve.
Were they really I don't know,
dickhead.
What would it have been like if you did that at Marco's? What would the difference be there?
I wouldn't have gone to hospital. I'd have wrapped my arse in cling film or something. I'd have just
take some paracetamol and
put some gaffer tape on it or something. Yeah. Well, when I was at Harvest once, when I was cooking after Gordon had gone to Gavroche, and I was sort of then assumed his position on the sauce and like sous chef, I was cooking some foie gras, and I put the foie gras gone in the oven, and I pulled the skillet out, and it was this hand actually, the right hand, left hand, and all the fat just shot off the skin and came down my arm like that, just really brutal, bad, like that, over the watch strap, so I had a sort of a non-scarred bit, and it was pretty, pretty brutal, and I had to just get a marigold, fill it with cold water and a bit of ice, and tie it around my wrist above it, and work like that with this cold water that didn't stay cold for very long for the rest of the service. Not. And the next day I went back home, sort of an hour north of London where I grew up in Bedfordshire, and went to the hospital, and they're like, you should have come and done this yesterday. And I'm like, you want to see who I work for? Like my mum, she has forgiven me now, but I got a twin brother, and on our 21st, all our family, there's a local restaurant in the private dining room, and any person who wasn't there was yours truly, because I wasn't going to ask for the night off, because everyone had their jobs to do in Harvest. You didn't, you had Sunday off, that was it, David off, that was it. And I never asked for the night off. And I remember Gordon saying to Marco at the end of the service, saying, oh, it's Steve's 21st today. He said, oh, is it? Should have asked the night off. Like, totally sarcastic. I was like, no thanks, Marco, I'd rather be here.
Thanks, yeah.
And it took my mum ages to come to terms with the fact that I chose not to, well, she didn't realise, but when you spend all day, I mean, I don't know how people feel about it these days, people the age are my age now, but you are tight, family, you go for, it depends who you work for, you're getting a hard time with somebody, you look after each other, you stick up each other, and someone's getting a tough time.
You've almost built a second family, or maybe the new first family, because you're with them all the time. But I've read in your book as well, this is another story that Marco sacked a guy for throwing away trout.
Yep, yeah, that's an interesting one, because it's true. There's this lovely lad who's Welsh actually, and we've seen each other in I mean, didn't mean it to me then. Now it means a bit more now. Patrick Jones, so he started working for us, and he was working on the larder. So it was a Sunday night, and we used to sort of pull out the little walk-in fridge and clean it out, put it all back, and that was that. That early in the day, Marco had come in. Marco never worked one service at the canteen ever. Never once. Because it was never his intention. He had myself and Tim Hughes.
That wasn't his job, yeah.
And later Tim Payne. People he knew he could trust and rely on to do it for him. And that's what we did. So he came in with this black bag, first mistake, black bag, with these pike in that he'd caught and said, oh, can you put them in the fridge till tomorrow and then send them down to me to the restaurant? That's when he had Hyde Park Corner with the 3 stars. Yeah. I was like, yeah, no problem. So that was that. So the next day he phones me out. He said, oh, can you send the pike down? I'm like, yeah, it's pike it was. He's going to do brochette, wasn't he, or something? So I'm like, yeah, no problem. I look for it. It's not there. So I'm like, where's the black bag with the pike in? So we're racking our brains, and I said to Padge, did you do the walk-in last night? He said, yeah. I said, there was a black bag in there with pike in it. He said, yeah, I remember bringing it out. I said, did you put it back in? He went, I can't remember. So I'm like, and it all dawned on us what had happened.
He lobbed it.
Well, the porter saw a black bag and thrown it out, so we went for the bins. Black bag is
rubbish, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. Shouldn't have been in a black bag. So anyway, I phoned Mark and said, got some bad news for you. So he said, right, okay. He said, send him down, send the lad down. I want to see the lad.
Padre,
yeah. So I'm like, mate, just go down there, take the heat. It's going to give you a hard time. Just come back, Don't
let it get to you.
Don't let it get to you. Just come back and we'll crack on. So like, comes back and I said, that wasn't so bad, was it? He went, well, he sacked me. I said, what? He said, he sacked me. I said, shut up, I'm not sacking you over that. He said, he sacked me. I said, get in the kitchen, crack on, I'll speak to Marco. So I phoned Marco. I said, Marco. He said, yeah, I sacked him. I said, I know you told him that he's been sacked. I said, but he's not sacked. I said, he's back in the kitchen working. I said, we can't afford to sack someone. He's good at what he does. It was an accident, and it's very unfortunate. I said, we can get you some more, whatever. But I said, I'm not sacking him. He said, I've sacked him. He said, he's sacked. I said, I'm not sacking him. So we had this issue, I know you're not. And I'm like, and he said, then he started saying to me, don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. And I said, what? Hang on a minute. You're going to sack me now because I'm not sacking someone because of this fish. And so he put the phone down on me then. Yeah. I know we've never spoke about it again. I was like, yeah,
just move on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, really?
So what was it like working for someone like Allan Passard then?
Oh, he's amazing. What an absolute
I've read up on him a little bit since obviously reading about him in your book. And it just seems like the adoration about him is almost genius-like.
He is, yeah. I watched... there's a series, one of these series on Netflix, and it's a Chef's Table or something like that.
Oh, is he on that?
And there's one of those things, and and there was one on him, and he just, the way he looks at things, he's so clever. So when I went to work there, I had been working in the south of France, and then my girlfriend at the time, her sister and sister's husband, he was doing an MBA at a place called INSEAD in Fontainebleau, which is in South Burgundy. So I went to stay with them, and I thought, I want to work in Paris. So I bought a little guide and went to have a look at what was what. And I knocked on the door there. The day I knocked on the door, they said, yeah. I took my whites with me just in case someone said, and they said, come and spend the day. So I was like, okay. And their young head chef there, he was younger than me. I was 27 at the time, I think. No, younger. Sorry, 20. Yeah, it was after canteen. I was 26, I think. And this chef was like 22, 23, but he'd been there 3 years and he did run it to, one point. Allan Passard was at a point now, he's thinking now, so that's got to be, he's probably my age now. He must have been late 40s. He must have been late 40s. Well, I'm 52, but Yeah, something like that. And he would just sort of like, he used to wear this really long apron that sort of almost touched the floor with these black sandals. And it's one of the things you remember. And he's almost like he's just floating. And then he would do service, bit of chit chat. Sometimes he'd do a little, he'd never come in like in the morning prep time and develop a dish or something. He'd do it during service. And then he would sit down to the side by the pot wash and have a little bite to eat. Go and press the flesh a little bit or something in the restaurants and that, and he would disappear, and then he'd come back floating again for evening service and do the same. The girl I used to work with on the lard, this Danish girl, lovely girl, and it was just her and I, someone on the grill, sauce and fish. So there was only sort of 5 of us in the kitchen and a place chef downstairs. So it's a real privilege at the time to work in a place like that. Hardest place I ever worked. It's more harder than Harvey's.
Oh really? In what way? Like
because there was the language barrier, which I'd worked at Gavroche, so I could do kitchen French and get by in broken conversation.
This was more fluent, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
faster,
yeah. What was the saving grace was that the person I worked on the larder, because that was the only two-person section. She was Danish, so
right.
Although she spoke French, she spoke perfect English.
Yeah.
And I actually shacked up with her because I didn't have anywhere to stay. I said, but the first night the pastry chef, and then I ended up sort of staying with her and paying her a bit of rent. So that was good, and she had this old vintage, independently 2-seat sprung motorbike from Denmark, and we used to go round up. It was one of those classic, like it was like that little flat and ratatouille. It was like that, you know, and it, with a little lift and everything. It was complete. I love that film because it's such a complete reflection of how it was for me. And we used to go up on this bike up to that little sort of rickety street, up to the Champs-Elysees, go around the Champs-Elysees, take our lives in our hands every morning, go around that thing. Down, so and then down the Champs-Elysees. So it's around the Arc de Triomphe, down the Champs-Elysees, and off to the restaurant, where every day it was just a bit repetitive. The cleaning was just insane. You had to just pull out the dry sauce every day, and it was in this little sort of brick, sort of like little cave underneath.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. It was so anal. Everything was so anal. That's what it was. When you filleted a fish, not that I ever got given the chance to fillet fish there, but couldn't touch it with your hands. You had to hold it with paper and this and that. It was so many things, which, fair enough, is Allan's way. Yeah. When we had to and I kid you not, you washed the rocket and you had to individually dry each leaf in some tissue paper.
Wow.
It's
extreme, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I remember some nights we'd be going home like absolutely shagged, and so we sat in the back of the bike, and old Allan, I'd pull up in his Porsche at the lights like that, like, my chef, like that. Yeah, cheers, guys.
Nice.
But yeah, it was good. Happy times, really good fun, really nice people.
Obviously, a few different stints and all of that, but then you end up at Oliver Peyton.
Yeah. Well, what happened there was that it's interesting because I loved Arpège, absolutely loved it. It was so, I would say, in the same way that Marco was so inspirational to me in the way of discipline, not so much the content, because it wasn't really his own, if I'm honest, but someone on originality and creative. I'd say Allan Passard is the most creative chef I've ever worked for, hands down. Country mile. And the things you'd see, like just the most amazing, beautiful milfoil, but it was such a simple way of cooking. And the way he embraced sweet and savoury. I mean, it's now the only 3-star vegetarian restaurant in the world. It's vegetarian now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, at the time it wasn't vegetarian. It got to a point where how did this happen? I had a phone call from a chap who used to be the manager at the canteen, a guy called Raj Sharma, who I got on very well with. I later lived with him and his then flatmate, Sanjay Davidi, who's now head chef at Koyo in London. And two lovely guys. And so Raj phoned me, and he was now working as one of the managers at Atlantic Bar and Grill. And he said, I'm working for this guy called Olive Peyton. She said, you've never heard of him. I want to open a new restaurant at Mayfair. I've talked about you, and he'd like to meet you. Where are you? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm actually working in Paris at the moment. He said, well, look, can you come over? And I'd only been at Arpège 2 weeks then, if that. And because I was living out of a bag at my sort of girlfriend's, I'd moved in with this last then, but anyway, so what I did, I made the excuse of having to go back to London to go and get some more possessions and belongings to come back to Paris with. So that was an event in itself, just getting to the airport that night. I mean, I remember getting the last train, because I said, I need to go, and they're like, yeah. So by the time I got to the train station, all the trains that went directly to the airport and finished. So I got a train that only went halfway to the airport, and I remember 2 Italian lads who had been in the same position, and we ended up walking, the 3 of us. We even went past Runges, and that was mad. It was quite an interesting night. We walked through the night, got to the airport early, and got a flight and went straight to see Oliver. And the person, and the girlfriend I'm referring to, she met me as well, and we went there together. And it was like, I don't know, about 11 o'clock in the morning. He's like, do you like martinis? I'm like, what, like a pointy glass thing? Like one of those? He's like, yeah, have a martini. And I'm like, I didn't want to say no, I don't want to be rude. So me and her had these martinis. I'm like, and I tasted it, I was like, fucking hell, people actually drink these. Like,
really strong.
He'd gone off for a meeting with like that classic into the plant pot like that. I was like, another one? No, it's fine. No. Anyway, so we got talking and took the coast. I'm like, yeah, this sounds amazing. I'm in. I said, I'm working at the Arpège at the moment. And at the time, I wanted to go back. I was intending to propose to my girlfriend at the time. They lived in Ireland. We were going back to Ireland at Christmas, and then they said our page opened over Christmas, closed Christmas Day, open Boxing Day, and I was like, well, I'm going to have to ask some time off on, because this coasting isn't going to happen until in the new year. And then what happened was I sort of thought, actually, I need to give him my notice. So I gave him my notice, and the guy said, no, I'm not accepting your notice.
You wouldn't take it.
I'm like, kind of doesn't really work like that at home, do you? Like that. Sort of give you notice, and you're like, you might think I'm a wanker, but at the end of the day, I'll take that as a compliment, because if you didn't, then you wouldn't really need my services. Anyway, so what happened one day? It all kicked off, and the head chef, Allan Passard, went spastic at me and this Danish girl, because there was this dish. It was a lovely dish, this poached lobster with this thinly sliced blanched nave and this beautiful sweet and sour emulsion that went over it, and the finest chopped fresh rosemary. And neither of us had fucking chopped it fresh. So he went to use it.
That was all brown and malt.
Yeah, and it was from day 4, and he went spastic. So he made us all stay in the afternoon, which quite happened very often to some other people. It was the first time it happened to me. And I was like, look, guys, I got to be honest with you. I've been offered this job. This is the people I worked with, this girl, and I'm like, I can't do this. They won't accept my notice. This is a good point for me just to go. I've never walked out of a job before. Yeah. I left my knives for them, etc., etc. And I said to, I can't remember her name now, lovely girl, and that was it. And a few months later, someone went to Arpège for lunch, and they're like, they worked in PR over here, and they knew me, and they said, someone I know, and he's like, don't talk to me about him. Blah, blah, blah. I had to do what I had to do. I'm not proud of it, but I hate that when people don't have the bollocks to sort of say. And I'd hand them a notice in. We'd got a bollock in, fair play. And I was like, do you know what?
You don't mind if you're sort of saying, I won't accept this because, we want you to stay and all that. But just to say...
They don't want me to stay, but it's like, well, that doesn't suit me. I'm doing something. It's an amazing opportunity.
It's different if they sit down and say to you, for example, well, we think you've got a great future here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Trying to convince you at least. But just to say we won't accept you, it's a bit authoritarian, isn't it?
Yeah. But lovely guy. I can't speak highly enough of him. And just an absolute industry giant, really. Allan Passard.
And how long did you work for Oliver Peyton when you came back after that?
Wow. Well, Oliver's, he's someone who's been very influential in my career because he's so inspirational and entrepreneurial, and he's so forward-thinking.
He's not a chef, so
no, he's a visionary. He was the person who first imported Absolute vodka and Sapporo beer into the UK. He started in his nightclubs. He's done a lot of stuff, Oliver, that people not aware of.
I was impressed that one of the designers was Mark Newson. Because he's he's up there, when it comes to design.
Well, Mark Newson now, so what happened was, I don't know how Oliver got introduced to Mark, but Mark had an office in Paris.
Yeah.
So while I was still working at Arpège, before I left, Oliver came over and said, let's go and see Mark. So we went to Mark's design studio, which was amazing. And Mark's so fucking cool, man. He's such a nice guy. Australian, started making surfboards, and he did that. The thing that launched his career was he started sort of putting that sort of like metal plates, small metal plates, panel beating it over with these little, and then riveting it over. Okay. And he did this sort of chaise lounge called a Lockheed. They're like selling for like $5 million now or something, something ridiculous.
Crazy.
So, becoming an actual product design legend at Mark Newson, who's sort of pretty much disappeared now because, he's got an amazing career, and but he was made an offer that he couldn't refuse by Jonathan Ives,
That's right.
the design guru genius at Apple, and he's made them, and he went to work with Jonathan over in Silicon Valley or whatever. But now Jonathan's now left, and they've
done their own thing,
and I'm sure Mark's doing that with Jonathan. So, but yeah, I remember once we did a photo shoot for Vogue. Yes, I have actually done a photo shoot for Vogue with Oliver and Mark, with one of Mark's tables that he designed for Coast, with a couple of the chairs on the beach, a canvas
I did come across that,
And Mark drove down in his DB5 Aston Martin, which wasn't anything amazing to look at, but it was a DB5 Aston Martin. That's how cool he was. Just dressed really casually, ponytail, battered old trainers, gets out of his DB5, you know. And yeah, cool ass, really nice guy.
Yeah, proper lad. And how long were you there for then?
Coast?
Yeah.
So I went on a few sort of stages before Coast opened, which was great. Yeah, which was amazing, absolutely amazing, which Oliver funded.
So what sort of, you went to California?
Well, I started in New York, and what really, really impressed me was that it was pre the Michelin.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not starting to grind the axe just yet, but
no, you've got time.
You know, okay, but it was pre-Michelin, and so there was no Michelin in America. So there was none of that of what there is now. That, you know, what that creates, you know, in chefs, and it was something that I had personally become very tired of, and something I didn't want to be part of. And I'd already said to Oliver, if I do this, I don't want to be in the Michelin Guide. No disrespect to the guide, because it's not the guide.
It's my tablet time, I'm sorry.
It's not the guide that's created these problems, it's the chefs.
Yeah.
Of that intensity and that abusive behaviour of, because they're in pursuit of this star. I mean, they just created the award system. They didn't create the crap that goes with an attitude. The chefs did that. But I didn't want to be part of it, because the first thing people say, oh, you're going to be going for a star. I'm like, no, we're not even going to be in the guide. And I actually phoned up.
Did you find that quite liberating in some way?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It was like burning my bra. You know, and I sort of like, I phoned up.
Metaphorically.
I phoned up Derek Brown, and I said to them, look, and I said, I want to have this conversation with you because I don't want to be in the guide. And I just want you to know it's nothing you've done wrong. I said, but it's just, everywhere I've worked, it's not been the best. And I just, you know, a lot of places more than others. So because of that pressure, I don't want that pressure.
Yeah.
I don't need that. And then when going to America and seeing these amazing restaurants like Gotham Bar and Grill, and you know, Union Cafe, and places like that, and Daniel's. I mean, Daniel's is a 3-star now, but this is before Michelin. It was like, how amazing was all those places, and with none of those sort of like people like, you know, worrying about, is this good, you know.
I think in America
they have their own judges, you know.
Yeah, the Zagat guide, didn't they, over there?
Zagat, yeah.
Yeah, and Egon Rone, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were the big ones.
Zagat was the main one, yeah. And so, and they were quite, you know, it was customer feedback, wasn't it? It was all customer responses. But, so that was really, really interesting. So when we started off, you know, Cafe Master was like, I think it was, she called it Pacific Rim sort of cooking. I mean, you know, I was drawing on my sort of, sort of inspiration, influence from the American sort of trips and things.
Did you do any work over there, or was it just travel?
No, I did stages,
Right, okay.
I did some stages. And then I went to San Francisco and did a few places there. I mean, people that are really super famous, Tracy Desjardins, she's really famous. I worked with her in a little kitchen when she was, you know, sort of similar age, you know. Yeah, there's some cool places.
So then you obviously come back and you start working for Oliver. And how long were you there for, all in, roughly? I don't think you've said that yet.
No, first time I was 2 years, just over 2 years.
So what made, in your view now, looking back, what made him different? Like, you know, working for him, that is. Like, what was the demands? Like, you know, sort of like, what did he sort of express to you that he wanted to be done? I don't know, like, what, in your view, like...
I think what we achieved there was a balance between... And I think we were the right people to do it because it worked, the relationship. He respected me as a creative person, because he, you know, Oliver is very, very much appreciative of creative arts generally. Good friend of his, Sadie Coles, runs an amazing, successful gallery.
Yeah.
I mean, she's like, you know, Jeff Koons is sort of like an agent and stuff like. I mean, you know, like Oliver introduced me a lot into the art world, and I love all that, you know, just because he had some amazing art in Atlantic and Coast, and obviously employed Mark Newson Services. You had Sarah Lucas and people like that putting art on the wall in Coast, on wine bottles, and you know, all those sort of Damien Hirst and things like that. which was cool, but it was also something that I like. It's something that I personally genuinely like. So it was like we had a lot in common. The other thing about Oliver, as I liked, was like if you had something to tell him, before you told him, he'd say, "Give me the concise version because I haven't got time to listen to the boring long story." And as long as you understood that about him, you wouldn't be offended.
Yeah.
And because he had too much thinking, he was always thinking all the time. I like that, he was thinking on his feet, and he's very clever. And what worked was he has a great understanding of customers, what the customer's looking for. He almost knows before them what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And he would be, so it wasn't all about your, famous chef or anything like that, And I like that. That's what I like so much about Caprice Holdings and all their restaurants. I would challenge anyone to tell me the name of any of their head chefs. But everyone knows the Caprice, everyone knows the Ivy. I mean, people in the industry do, but I
was going to say,
Gary Lee and and Tim Hughes.
They're not the front and centre.
And it's all about the business, and that's Jeremy King and Chris Corman again. That's how they set that up. I mean, Richard Cairns just inherited it and expanded it, and is exploiting it really. Because he's a fantastic businessman, but. I think it comes down to Chris and Jeremy, just the most amazing entrepreneurial sort of restaurateurs, how to look after your workforce and to get the best out of them with respect and so they feel rewarded. They're always paid handsomely, and it works, and it creates a great balance. They're
not creating egos, are they? They're just great food, great service, look after the staff, like you say, great dining rooms. And there's no egos, there's no drama. It's just great food.
I think some of the best dining room. Well, I think the best dining rooms in the UK. Look at the Wolseley, but also what they had before. Like Caprice, they're institutions. They're iconic. I mean, wow! If you can create something that's regarded as an institutional or iconic, it's like wow, you've done something in life, haven't you?
And they've got many. Not just one. Got many institutions.
And they make them work.
Yeah.
And they went on to do it again.
Do you think there's something about that long term, like that nature of just sort of like keeping your head down, giving it 5 years, 10 years, rather than sort of like trying to bash it out fast? Like they do give them time, don't they?
Yeah. And they're always they pick the right locations generally. I'm sure they might have the odd sort of turkey, but
St Albans. Was it
and they didn't they? Or Caprice Holdings definitely tried one in New York, the Monkey Club or Monkey Bar or something. It didn't work out.
A bit far, I suppose, maybe. But although they're doing a lot of abroad now, aren't they? The Ivy Group and all that lot,
Yeah. But Chris Corbin, Jeremy King, sort of huge fans of their work, and they're just bloody nice people as well.
Proper gentlemen,
successful people. But I mean, you can't just people. I mean, I hate that culture of disliking people because they're successful and they've got stuff you want. Or they've worked flipping hard for that. Really.
I've said this a lot on the podcast actually, and it's very much like in the UK we don't celebrate success, we celebrate failure, and we like to see people fail. We don't talk about it. Whereas when someone's successful, no one really likes it. We don't say, "Well done, mate, you did well there."
I've always been the first person to say, because people, the higher you are, the bigger target, like Jamie Oliver and that. It's like that guy, he's clever. He's done well.
Smart
His image. He's worked. He's good. He's genuine. It's like, what's there not to like about Jamie Oliver?
Well, I can't think of a reason to dislike the guy. He's always nice, isn't he?
You can't like him because he's worth a fortune. It's like he's worth a fortune because he sold a shed load of books and people like what he says.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot more people that like him than dislike him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it a leap from when you left Oliver Peyton? Was it literally you just went straight to sort of Wales at Abergavenny? How did that transition happen?
God, no, there was quite a bit in between that.
Give us a little bit of a...
So when I left Oliver, it was all amicable because I just felt I wanted to travel. I just felt a sort of a calling to sort of travel, and I was only 27, 28. And friends of mine who I'd previously worked with at Harvey's, the second time round at Harvey's, which happened after I finished at Gavroche and worked for Nick Nairn. I went back to work at Harvey's and then set up the canteen for Marco. So after canteen was France then was Oliver, left Oliver after 2 years. So I went to work, I didn't work really, I took a long holiday in Australia.
Nice.
And just made an offer out there and thought that's something I'd like to do. So I sort of gave my notice, and I wasn't sure at the time, but thought it was the right thing to do. And then it didn't happen in the end. I went out there and with my Well, I left the UK with my girlfriend, and we stayed in Hong Kong. I left Hong Kong with my fiancée because I proposed to her, so that sort of made things a little more complicated.
Was the fiancée the same as the girlfriend, or are these different?
Yeah, yeah. The girlfriend morphed into a fiancée sort of halfway through the trip.
As long as there weren't two different people.
No. And we got to Melbourne and met these guys, and they were lovely guys, John Van Handel and Frank, his brother. And they had the Stoke House, and that was the thing to go and take over for a while. And then it's like, well, you do this for 3 or 4 years, and then we'll set you up if you want to set up in Melbourne. We'll back you in Melbourne, we'll back you in Sydney, whatever. And she was like, well, look, the offer should be written. It should be there now. We've had a meeting with these guys before, so it should be something to sign, and there wasn't, so to speak. And it just wasn't a deal breaker for me. But she then said, well, look, I'm happy to come to Australia. She said, but I really don't I really don't want to stay longer than sort of 5 or 6 years. And I thought, well, what would be the point in investing all that time not to stay there forever, something with a view to staying there for a long term?
Yeah.
So we didn't do it, which is fine, because I was head over heels at the time, so it was fine. And I thought, well, we can do it somewhere else. And then came back and eventually went back to Coast because Oliver asked me if I would consider going back. It needed a bit of a regeneration, a little bit more love, and a bit more of a, sort of a new lift, and he was prepared to invest in it. But unfortunately, at the time, the things were quite tough and financially for them, and the bank wouldn't back them as a Coast. It did Coast, but then after a year, the bank said, look, if we're going to continue with a refurbishment, which is going to cost quite a few quid, because that Mark Newson design had sort of lived its sort of relatively short shelf life.
Really? Okay. If
they were going to invest in it, they wanted to make it into what they call their mash concept, which is like the microbrewing and that.
Okay.
Which they did, but I didn't want to be part of it, And I was like,
why was that? Out of interest?
Because I just didn't want to sort of at that time. It's sort of not even what I'm doing now. It was a lot, but it could have been good, really.
Was it I don't know mash. Was it like a casual dining?
Yeah,
all right.
But quite casual, but the sort of place we'd all enjoy going.
Yeah.
And the food was actually really good, and there was nothing wrong with the food at all. So, in hindsight, probably wouldn't have been a bad idea, but I wasn't.
Wasn't there
in my life.
Yeah.
Wasn't for me then. Now I'd be all over it.
Yeah.
So that, and then I was like, and at the time, in between that, I got married, my first marriage, and the two gentlemen that had married my first wife and I taught at Cheltenham Boys College. Prior to getting married, they said, we'll have a chat and go through things. And I said, okay. So we were getting married in Cheltenham, and this chap lived sort of Hereford way, and he said, I know a really nice restaurant, why don't we go there for lunch, we can have a chat. So it turned out to be the Walnut Tree.
It's not very close to Hereford, but...
Well, 20 miles.
All right, okay then, from the other side.
It's not far.
Yeah.
So we went there, and then Franco introduced himself. I recognise you. I followed your career. Arm's length. I've seen you in the papers and that. Do you ever see yourself in the country? I'm like, I kind of do. Yeah, I sort of. It's sort of. Yeah, and that was that, and we went on our way. And then after getting married, we went back again with the chaplain and the other and the head and the master or whatever, and with her parents and that. And again, he was sort of like saying, well, why didn't you come and spend some time with us or whatever. But then I'd just gone back to Coast for the second time then, you see. Oliver did this second time thing. And it was only when that sort of wasn't working out because he couldn't get the investment to do the Coast thing, which is what I wanted to do. My missus said at the time, well, just get out of town for a week or so. Go and see Franco down in the Walnut Tree. You want to go down there? So as soon as I went down, he's like, so do you want to buy it? And I'm like that. Oh, yeah, I don't know, I suppose, yeah. I was sort of like, So anyway, long story short, Chris Corbyn of Corbyn and King.
Yeah.
And he helped us out with some advice and a small investment just on a tax relief thing, and which I'm sure he got back. Yeah, he was very, very helpful. And that was that. And then, but me and the missus went separate ways. She didn't come down to Wales, which was a natural split. She worked in television. I was like the virtual husband to her friends, and her work was doing lots of writing treatments for pop videos at the time. She's very successful now, and she did a bit of presenting, and she now does something amazing. But she's done what she's done, and I've done what I've done, So, but it just didn't work out for us. I mean, we didn't have any kids, and there was no one else. There's no third parties involved. It wasn't like
clean. You can move on. Yeah. How long were you at the Walnut Tree for?
It was about 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less. We opened February 2001. I started working with Allan Franco in November 2000, so I worked with them for 3 months. Just to sort of, I could because I was working with Martin Lamb at the Ransoms dock, and he was lovely, and his then wife Vanessa been here as well. And he was the first chef. He used to be the chef at L'escargot, and really lovely guy. And he's an amazing sort of authority on wine now, but. Great cook, works them just around the corner before I lived in Battersea. Yeah, when I went down to the Walnut Tree, so I worked there for 3 months with Allan Franco, and then we took over and opened in February. And I think, God, we wanted to star in the first year, and when did the guy come out then? It went from being February or something to September it is now. Because I remember I was in Safeways in Abergavenny, which is now Waitrose, and I had my mobile phone rang, and it was Gordon. And he said, I said, hi. And he's like, you want a star? What are you talking about? He said, a Michelin star. You want a Michelin star? At the Walnut Tree. Really? He said, yeah, I got the press release. He said, just because he sometimes I told Nick Nairn the day before the guy came up because they launched it at the Harvest, and I phoned him up and told him he had a star. And I was a bit sort of perplexed by it already. And Gordon said, oh, you don't sound very happy. And I was like, well, we do steak and chips, and it's sort of quite casual, He said, well, you got a starter. I was like, oh, happy days. I was like, I never saw it coming, really. To be honest with you. I was just cooking food. I enjoy cooking. Really getting into my Italian cooking with Francesco, who was my business partner. Very knowledgeable, obviously Italian cooking. He's very passionate. I was just enjoying it. I was like, wow, okay, fair enough. So I think it was about 18 months. Just one day, I don't know. We'd had a busy weekend, and look, it's never always plain sailing. I can be a bit of a twat sometimes. I mean, but I'm never abusive. But
no.
I know I'm better than that. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. We'd had a few words, me and Francesco, just so across the pass or whatever. Yeah. I don't think it was really that. I'm not sure what, because 6 months prior to this moment, he told me he wanted to leave, and I was like, oh, okay. And then went away for a week, came out and said, oh no, I don't now. It's fine. And I'm like, okay, because he was a little bit sort of temperamental and quite. Like Italian, sort of passionate and emotional, they talk with their hands a lot and wave them around a lot and give it all this and like that. One woman came into the bar one day and said, do you do snacks? He's like, that's snack. What is a snack? Like that, I mean, if you put it another way, you'd be like, yeah, we can do this and this.
Yeah,
like that.
You do small plates.
Yeah, but then, so, hey, I don't know, Joe. So I was living down in the cottage. I was with Jo then, who's now my wife. We were going. It was a day we were going to pick up our first brand new car that we ever bought. It was like a Mini Cooper S. It's like 19 years ago. It's so exciting. I went up to the office to go and get a bit of cash or something, whatever. And Francesco just came into the room and said, "I want you out." I went, "Oh, well, all right, I'll be gone in a minute. I'm just cutting some stuff." He said, "No, I want you out." I said, "What do you mean out?" He said, "Out the Walnut Tree." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I want to do it my own." I was like, "Oh, okay. You've obviously given this some thought then." I said, "So." I said, well, look, I don't want to fall out with you, Francesco. Look, I'm godfather's your son. Look, life's too short. I said, but if that's what you want, I understand that. I said, but, I'm not going to walk away from this. I said, I asked you into this. And we were in a financial difficulty at the time. I mean, it hadn't quite worked out as we expected. There was a lot of that, it's not quite the same as when Frankie was there. It's like, no shit, he doesn't cook anymore. Long live the king, the king's dead, Yeah. And by the way, we did pay him 675 grand for it, which he took us to the cleaners for. And
he did all right then.
He did all right, and then also he started doing a consultancy for the Fox Hunter, which was Matt Tebbett's restaurant. When there was a little bit of a thing going on there, so everyone thought Franco was there. That didn't help. But what the biggest factor was that the day we opened, foot and mouth was declared.
Yeah,
I mean, loads of roads were shut. He just kicked. Everyone got a bollocking out of that. Didn't they? So one thing and another. So I said, well, look, we need to speak to Chris, because Chris is the third, he's our third business partner. He's the third person in this. He'll have to make a decision. And obviously Chris gave us some thought. I mean, he and I had a good relationship, and Francesco and him, not so much so. They'd worked together, because Francesco previously worked at Caprice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was one of those things. We had a meeting and just got a phone call later, and Chris was like, I'm really sorry, but, I'm going to go with Francesco. And he didn't go into too much detail, but it was purely because, unlike myself, everything I made out of a flat that I sold in London had been invested which I did get back. I didn't lose any money. But we needed a bit more injection of cash, and Francesco had a house in London with a bit more equity in it,
So
which
he
sold and did that. So that was really the main reason, to be honest with you. Anyway,
so it was nothing personal. It just it is what it is.
Yeah. And then and ultimately, look, he ran it into the ground in the next 2 years and shut it anyway. So
because that was the one that was obviously on Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, wasn't it?
Again, it's one of those things, because Francesco told me he was doing it because we were still talking, and I was like, I'd be careful. I'll show you, Francesco, just be careful. And he's like, hey, listen, any PR is good PR. And I was like,
oh, really? That wasn't good PR, was it?
They do say that. I said, but I'm not quite sure if I do believe
that wasn't good PR.
And then it turns out that, on the premise that the working title of the programme is called Cutting the Mustard.
All right.
Not Kitchen Nightmares. I mean, would you sign up for something called Kitchen Nightmares?
Hindsight's
Probably
a beautiful
not.
thing. Like, now we know. No.
So it's called Cutting the Mustard. And even at the end of that programme, they gave him a little thing and it said Cutting the Mustard on it, but that never stayed.
That never made it through.
No. And then it turns out they didn't make him look.
No, it didn't.
The best.
Well, no.
It didn't come out with
Was it as bad as that, though? Was he as bad as that? Like, the way it looked, or was it just dramatised, do you think?
No, it was dramatised.
Yeah.
He wasn't the best. He was emotional. I mean, times are hard, and it's like you can't deny a man that, but it was sensationalised.
Yeah, I don't think no one mentioned in that series that there was foot and mouth and all that. There was no mention of that. So, no. And they did over-celebrate the previous owner massively. Like, talk about lording him up in that.
I know.
Yeah,
what was all that about? It's like, oh, my God.
And I've not even watched that in ages, but I remember that. I remember it massively. Like, talk about lording it up. He felt like Lord of the Manor walking back in, didn't he? Like, yeah. So,
which is fair enough. I mean, they achieved a massive amount. I mean, Anne and Franco, started in 1963. They were there for 37 years.
Yeah.
What they didn't sacrifice isn't worth knowing, And obviously they made so many sacrifices. The cuts and bruises got fallen off the roof and this and that.
Of course, you credit that. Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, but move on.
How long have you been here at the Hardwick?
It will be 14 years next Monday,
and
the 11th of November.
It's not too far away from your old restaurant or anything, is it? So it's like,
from the Morningtree, it was crow flies. 2 miles.
All right, so what, 5-minute drive?
Yeah,
not even that. And so it seems like, although lovely around here, there's no doubt, it seems like a really hard place to trade. I don't know. There's not a lot of traffic. How what are some of the negatives?
Well, this road outside here, this is now a B road. It was the A road, the A40. It's now been obviously downgraded to a B road. It is quite a busy road locally.
Yep.
If you were passing through, because the A40 is like gateway to West Wales. If you were passing through, you would probably take the dual carriageway for ease. But if you've done your homework and you're thinking it's sort of in that point of the journey where we might want to stop for something to eat, there are a few options along this road. Yeah. Well, actually, there are 3 of different budgets and different degrees. And you might think, because some people do plan their journey, saying, well, where are we going to stop for lunch? Because the kids will be like, yeah, we'll have a McDonald's, and you're like, the adults like that. Well, we don't really want a McDonald's. Yeah. We want something a bit nicer than that, and you can eat, in the restaurant. So I always think that that's a benefit, but this local trade they're busy going somewhere. And we have this, sadly, there's a perception about the Hardwick is that it's expensive and posh, inaccessible. Why? Well, the TV probably hasn't helped in terms of, not because of the content of TV, although you end up on Great British Menu, you do cook quite high convoluted dishes because that's the nature of the programme. Yeah. And they probably think you do that all the time, which is actually probably goes against you. But people a bit on telly, you think, it's but a lot of people think we've got a star, which is like my worst nightmare. I mean, I don't respond to any of the guys. I did get my annual 2 rosette plate the other day in the post, which I used to chuck straight in the bin, but I just don't do that now. I just put it on reception. I was like, whatever. Yeah. I didn't throw it in the bin because I think we should be more than that or less than that. It wasn't the grading. It's just that I just didn't want to be part of it because I think all these sort of guides have got. We're all feeling the pinch. They're all everyone's got tough budgets to make, and they're all feeling it. And I think for me, I don't think the judging is what it used to be personally. Yeah. And I think actually you've never done what I do, and I would never judge someone on what they do if I've never done it. Yeah. And I think that's funny. It's mad the way that there's this sort of like this aura, this sort of like this big fucking song and dance around every September, I mean, leading up to the guide's release, I mean, all these, well, not all of them, but a lot of the chefs that have an award from, you know, the Michelin, the star or whatever, or multiple stars, a lot of them are shaking like a dog shitting a peach stone. You know, and it's like, you know, like I was like, and then they get there, and then they're all on the social media afterwards going, yeah, thanks for, you know, we're so proud to have retained our 1 star, and it's like, great, I'm congratulations, I'll be the first. I mean, nearly all my friends, you know, like in the industry have got at least a star, you know, but I'm just over it, man. I'm just over it. I just think, who you're being judged by? These people make fucking tyres at the end of the day, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think, you know, like last year when, you know, all the chefs there and they got Gordon around out the awards, it was just like, how far can you get up Gordon Ramsay's arse? Do you know what I mean? Really, it's just like, it was the perfect exercise, exhibition in sycophantic behaviour I've ever seen in my life. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, my God, it was just incredible. And I was like, wow. At the end of the day, would the guide be anything without the chefs? There wouldn't be any guide, would there? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
that's that point.
And they really sort of like, the chefs have got this guide up on so far up on a pedestal. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and then they're like, actually, do you know, you're the ones. They're not the ones with the power. You know, they have the power to give and to take away. And the way they've taken away from some people in the last few years, it's just shocking. When you look at who still has these much coveted sought after awards, these stars. And there's no comparison between some establishments. I know it's obviously just my opinion, subjective, and you know, I have an opportunity to give you my opinion.
Everyone's allowed an opinion,
you know. And I think there are some places, and I don't want to name names because some of them, I love these restaurants personally, going there. But in terms of 1 star, compared to places that haven't got one, and then places that are getting 2 stars, and I just think it's very inconsistent. That's all I'd say. And I don't think they've got an easy job, the Michelin. So I do sympathise. I do think they've made a rod for their own back with some of the people who they've given stars to maybe quite a long time ago. And I think there's a good example of a Welsh restaurant that lost its star this year. And there's another Welsh restaurant that's cooking very similar food that, yeah, fortunately for them and happy for them, I'm pleased for them that they retained their star. But the cooking styles are exactly the same, but they would never dare take that star away from that person.
Oh, all right, I see.
I don't think they've got that's why it annoys me. It's not a level playing field. It's too inconsistent. And look, at the end of the day, they're trying to sell guides and I think just generally book sales are getting less and less every year. And guides probably even more so.
It's going to become more of an online thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So obviously they can, and I suppose, I mean, I know little about this, but that they'll generate revenue from advertising. I suppose people advertising on their site. That's the only way to make it, isn't it?
Guess so.
Because you won't unless you get people to subscribe.
I think Michelin do like do a subscription now.
Right.
Yeah, so it's an online subscription.
Okay, that's
what
fair
I
enough.
saw. Yeah,
Okay,
so
that's
I
fair
can't remember
enough.
what it was, but yeah.
And no, that's hard. I mean, and I think, you know, they've got quite a good profile on social media. They're always tweeting and stuff like that.
In defence of the guide, to be devil's advocate slightly, I think David Moore in the last podcast said, like, you know, he feels that it's really important, especially in London, because he says, like, you know, it really helps with like the concierge and stuff like that, especially for like top end restaurants and you know, top end hotels, because, you know, he said there is a big difference between having a 2 star against a 1 star and a 1 star against no star. But again, I think it's all location wise, isn't it?
And I think it represents a certain standard, but I just think the way that those standards are judged is inconsistent. And that's what annoys me.
And you've got no insight into it. You don't know the judging criteria, do you?
No,
I guess not. No, I don't know.
And then you've got restaurants like Scott's in Mayfair, which is like so when Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Harvey Keitel go out for dinner, where do they go? They go to Scott's because they know that they can phone the concierge there, and because they know sort of people like that go, and they'll you know spend a decent amount of money, and it's a place to be seen, and the food there is so bang on seasonality and sort of like great. I mean, you know, it is what it is. I mean, you can have a piece of turbot there, a Dover sole for 40 odd quid, or you know, beautiful, you know, scallop burger, and I mean caviar. You know, crustacea. I mean, it's the best of the best. Yeah. But the Michelin would never even entertain anything, giving them anything there because they're so far above that. I mean, there's no one there that wants that. And the people who go there are not looking for that either.
Right.
Some guy went there recently. Yeah, he's a very wealthy guy. He spent, table of fours was, allegedly spent about £500 on a table of four for food and 30 grand on wine.
I was going to say, that's where it's at, isn't it?
Because he can, but he didn't, you don't get that in, so like Gordon's 3-star, these, the crown and the jewel of the
Hospital
Ramsay,
Road,
which is incredible, how it's kept that consistency with different head chefs. I mean, Claire obviously was, did it for a long time and did it amazingly well. Hence the fact that she opened up Core and got 2 stars quite rightly straight away. That put a lot of people's noses out of joint, didn't it? But, if someone's cooking that, then to save pissing a lot of people off, wouldn't they go 1 then 2 in 2 years just for the sake of doing it? But yeah, so the Michelin thing is, so I had a phone call from the Michelin a few years back now. We had an inspection one day, unbeknown to us. And the next morning, so my head chef and I, it was on a Sunday night, my head chef and I were working. It was a quiet night, we did about 20 people. He phoned me the next morning, he said, oh my God, he said, you never guess who's in the restaurant having breakfast. I'm like, I don't know, Freddie Mercury. No, the head inspector of the Michelin, some lady, it was Rebecca Burner, obviously I didn't know her name then, and another inspector. And they said they stayed last night and had dinner. I said, well, you and I were cooking. Everything was all right, wasn't it? He went, yeah, it's fine. Because we were cooking at a standard then that is different, not in terms of the quality of ingredients we use, but we were just refining things a little bit, sort of, for that reason, really. Because if we were ever going to, sort of be awarded a Michelin star, then that probably would have been the time the food we were cooking. I've only ever worked in 1, 2, and 3 star establishments, in the last sort of 30 years of my career. So I know the crack, right? So anyway, we had a bib gourmand at the time. So when the guide came out, they took the bib gourmand first, not for quality issues, but because of the pricing structure, and we weren't meeting the criteria of you had to produce 3 courses for £28 something. And we didn't do a set menu then, we do now, and we didn't get the star. So I was like, that's fair enough, but I'm done now. That's as far as I'm prepared to go. So they send you a form every year, you fill out a couple of specials, and you blah blah blah, and I just stopped filling the forms out. And they phoned me up and said, you haven't filled your form out? I said, yeah, that's right. Well, can we ask why? I said, yeah, because I don't want to be in the guide. And the guide, fell off his flipping seat. He said, well, I think you're making a big mistake there. You get a lot of business from us. I'm like, you've been down here. I said, because we don't get any business from the Michelin guide down here. Nothing to do with the Michelin. I said, this is all local trade. People come down from the valleys. I said, it's not about you guys. And I said, and secondly, times are tough. Everyone's tight on resources, so don't bother stopping, go on to the next place. And thirdly, you haven't got anything I want. I said, because it'd be my worst nightmare to a star. I did it because, having done it twice before, I didn't feel the desire. And I've always been very fortunate, at the canteen, Marco behind it, it was his menu. We made it happen, we got the consistency, therefore that was probably quite helped the star. And the walnut tree, God knows how we did that, I don't know. I was just enjoying my cooking and doing nice food. Yeah. I can cook that sort of food if I want, but I'm cooking... I've got bills to pay. I've got 3 kids. I've got a big old mortgage. I'm getting raped every month by the Monmouthshire County Council, and I'm naming shaming for £5,300 for business rates that I get fuck all for, not even street lights. So we're in appeal against that, and it's like that rapes me every month. So I need to make sure that I get bums on seats. I'm not chasing something that's going to reduce my income. Yeah. And to some degree... I put people off. Yeah, and we see that, because I was reading some of your reviews, and many people are like, oh, he's got a star, and I expected better. But you don't have a star, and you've never said that. I've looked everywhere. I can't see where you've even said that. Well, they might get confused, because at the beginning of the book, in the dedications, the last dedication was to my 3 stars. And people could think, oh, what... And it goes on to say Olivia, Phoebe, and Finlay, because they're the stars in my life. There's only 3 stars I ever need, and that's my 3 kids. Simple as. Yeah, it's just interesting because reading reviews and stuff, like it's a roller coaster ride, isn't it? It's just like, these people are just like, they genuinely think you've got a Michelin star, and they're trying to judge you based on what they think that is, because they don't know what that represents. Yeah, and that's a tough thing for the Michelin, because they're trying to sort of manage everyone's expectation of what they are and what they represent, and I don't envy that position of theirs. And people, because some guy said to me one day, he came in, sat in the bar with another chap, and this guy was clearly part of a workforce. He had a high vis on, I ain't got a problem with that. His money's the same as everyone else's. And he was with his mate. Turns out his mate owns a couple of phone shops up in the valleys. He'd taken him out for lunch. And he sort of it wasn't a busy day, and I was just coming out into the bar, and he said, "Hey, have you got one of those Michelin star things like that?" And I was like, well, I thought, let me just ask you what that means to you. If what does that mean to you? And I said, well, I answer, well, what does that mean to you? And he went, well, it's that yuppie posh food, isn't it? And I was like, that's the thing. I said, that's the problem. I said, no, we haven't. And I said, because it's they sat in the bar and had fish and chips.
Yeah.
Now, fish and chips. You said fish and chips 20 years ago. They're like, well, of course he hasn't got Michelin star. Bloody fish and chips are plum doing. But, Hand and Flour's been doing fish and chips, 2-star fish and chips, ever since it's had 1 star.
Yeah.
So fish and chips,
can be done right.
Which I think is great. I like that. But, it just needs to be, the food in the country can be the same as in a city restaurants with stars and should be rewarded accordingly.
Yeah.
And, in the same way, but it isn't.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I don't think so, no.
So a few years back, you had this sort of discrimination case, and it's always awkward to talk about stuff like this, but it was really weird because everyone was quick to pile in, all the newspapers, to talk about it before the judgment.
Yeah.
And then I only saw one article after that basically said you were cleared of every count.
Yeah.
Which is probably normal with the media.
They got a job to do, don't they? I mean, obviously, they think it's newsworthy. So.
A few more articles saying...
I was all based on the fact that I was Gordon's best man at his wedding.
Oh, right.
That was the connection. It was the Gordon Ramsay connection. It wasn't because I'm some kind of super famous chef, because I'm not. Yeah, I've done a bit of telly, done a bit of GBM, done a few Saturday kitchens, and and met some lovely people and done some nice things. But I'm small time. I'm very small time. You know, that was why it was. And I've seen it before with other people, and sometimes it's been in this industry. Someone who's been associated with Jamie or whatever. I mean, there's obviously probably is a decent news sitting on the ground that day, so let's stick that in.
Yeah, and also you look pretty calm about it all, but it must have been pretty stressful at the time. Like, court's never nice, is it?
Well, the thing is, I wasn't stressed by it. I was surrounded by a few stressed people.
Yeah,
but I just knew that we hadn't done anything wrong.
Yeah,
not to what we've been accused of. And when it came out, and then the case that was being brought against us was sexual discrimination, and as the judge, or whatever he was to be referred to as, said, it was just a culture of banter. It wasn't discriminatory, male or female. It wasn't myself anyway, but it was my employees.
Yeah.
And it's a long day. You have a bit of banter.
Bit of a laugh.
And the person who was brought these charges, was making these accusations, was just as much as part of it as the boys.
Yeah.
But someone had said, she got upset one day and she told me that she was leaving and didn't really give me a notice. And my sous chef, I was just about to go on holiday for 2 weeks. My family was just saying, it was the first time in 8 years or something, I was going to do that. And I was like, oh, that's great. And anyway, and then the sous chef at the time sort of just was a bit sort of, it was a bit hard on her, but not in an offensive way. She got a little bit upset and went home, and then he spoke to her and spoke to her boyfriend. Anyway, it sort of escalated, and I came into work the next morning to grab something before we went away, and I picked up the phone just randomly. So I'll answer the phone, and it was her mum, and she said, well, and she said about these accusations, some of the accusations. I said, well, look, they're quite serious accusations. I said that. I said, I'll look into it. I'll get back to you. Went on holiday, didn't forget about it, but, one thing and another. Yeah. And then 6 weeks later, on the desk, big fat envelope with all these, you're getting taken to court sort of thing. So, it cost quite a lot of money. It cost us, we didn't get any money back, and I didn't take her for cost, which I could have done. I thought, well, as much as she cost me money, I thought...
There probably wouldn't have been much there.
Well, what was the point? I don't. They were advised to do something, badly advised. Their barrister, the guy who was questioning all of us, he would say, "Oh, so you find her sexually attractive, dear?" And he was sat there, my missus there, and I'm like, "Are you for real?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you for real?" It's like, "Are you trying to just bait me or something?" He said, I'm a father of 3, and no, I don't.
Yeah.
And then he said, he was talking to this lady, lovely lady, who used to work for us up in the office, and then where the office is at the top of the stairs, you can sort of hear what's going on in pastry,
right.
Where this young girl was, and she was referring to something. And so she was on the stand, and she was being questioned by their barrister. And he's just, this young lad, honestly, he shot himself. So he might have gone outside and hung himself. He said, "Yeah, but you're just a woman working in an office, aren't you?" I'm like, "And this is a sexual discrimination case, and you just said that." I was like, "Oh my God, game over."
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, it's one of those things. People are quick to jump on the bandwagon. It also in the sense that you said that from a negative way that the tabloids jumped on, it was amazing the amount of support that we had on our side, customers and friends and family. Oh yeah, you know, they of course everyone has a bit of banter and that. And everyone
it's notorious in kitchens, obviously, you know, that camaraderie. So how does that work out with like chef shortages? Because obviously if you look at like even like very well populated areas like London, Birmingham, Manchester, they would be sort of talking about chef shortages. How does that manifest in a sleepy town like Abergavenny?
Well, look, I mean, there are different reasons why people look for jobs, aren't they? So, I mean, ultimately, we don't want to be discriminatory, but it helps the younger people are to a point that they've got maybe haven't got too many family commitments, or if they have, they can manage it or whatever. But people without complications or commitments, or, you know, who can dedicate themselves to their career, you know, ideally they're the sort of people you're looking for. But those people, very few and far between, and they've got lots of choice, and it's a lifestyle choice now. I mean, it never used to. I never ever any job choice I ever was. I never factored in my social life. I accepted that. That'll work hard, play hard. That'll come later.
Yeah.
I'm building foundations. You know, I'm prepared to invest my time. I'll give that person my time as long as I'm getting something out of it. As I said to one of the lads last night, I said, point of view being here is for me to get what's inside here into your head.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's it. I said, you'll work hard. That's the bit I get out of it. You're going to work hard. You want to get what's in here. I said, because I'm 52, you know, I'm not going to do it forever and ever. You're 22.
Yeah.
I'm 30 years older than you. You need to get this stuff, you know, some of it. You can sift through what you think is good, what isn't good, and make it your own and add it to other people's you work with. That's what I did. It is difficult because you've got to look at, you know, what's in it for them. You know, first of all, you've got the financial side of things. So, you know, you've got people in the cities can always seem to have got a bit more money, can pay bigger money. The one thing I say when people come here is, I can't pay you what you're earning in the city because we just don't have that kind of turnover. But what I don't pay you in money, I'll pay you in knowledge. Which, yeah, you could go back to that chain restaurant, the Coat or whatever, where it's all standardised and recipe folders and this and that. So we don't have a recipe folder here. Well, it's kind of one. It's a bit of a mess, but it's mainly pastry stuff. But, you know, I'm teaching you to cook instinctively, and from someone who, you know, I'm kind of, in some people's views, a mini sort of celebrity chef because I've done a bit of telly and I've won a couple of Michelin stars, so I'm sort of at a certain level. But I said, but I'm here every fucking day. You're not working with someone whose name's above the door you'll never see, or might pass through and pat you on the back and say, well done, good job. I said, I'm here minimum 6 days a week, which isn't ideal because I don't particularly, I'd rather be here 4 or 5 days, but I need the business needs to be busy enough for me to be able to afford to do that. To get more people like you, young people, in and invest that time in you, so you can run my restaurant, and then I can look at doing something else, maybe have a holiday, spend a bit more time with family.
How do you sort of self-motivate? You know, and this is something that I always, you know, is it a fear of failure? Is it, you know, TripAdvisor reviews? Is it, was it a combination of stuff? Just
nothing. I don't care for anything someone writes on social media. I don't even read it. My sous chef reads them because, you want to see them? So I'm not interested, Nathan. I'm not interested. It's just like, you know.
Does someone have to post on Instagram for you?
No, I do that. I like doing that.
Right.
Yeah, I've got a couple to put up there. Because I was always thinking, is that good? And I think, and I look at other people and think, it's just what you do. So I'm thinking, no, I'm not trying to compete with, you know,
it's just
the
other sharing, people. Isn't it? It's just sharing. Yeah.
So no, it's not a social media thing. It's not fear of failure, because if I do fail, if there comes a day one day when I do fail, it won't be because I haven't done it. I won't have done everything that is possible to me not to fail.
Yeah.
So bar turning it into I'm not going to just dumb it down so far that I'm out. I just don't want to do that kind of food. I don't want to do that. You know, like turn it into like a rival, the local, associated with the travel lodge.
Like 2 for 1 type thing. Like,
and all that. I mean, they just, they're run by bean counters and no one cooks really, do they? And it's all sort of, I don't do that. like say, I would be the last man standing on the ship going down empty, because I'd have made sure everyone got off in the life raft and whatever they wanted did. So it's not the fear of failure. I don't want to fail because I feel wholeheartedly that the products that we offer is incredibly good value for money. People work very hard here. Yes, it is labour intensive to a point. Yeah. It's not as labour intensive as some of the finer dining restaurants that shapes and sizes and people spend all day doing all that. We don't do that, but it's still labour intensive. That's the money. That's why it costs what it costs. It's the difference between getting a brand new car for a Daewoo or whatever it's for $7,000 or something that's made by robots, and paying 150 grand for an Aston Martin that's practically handmade. You pay your money. I mean, we're not that end of the scale, but we're in the middle. Yeah, we're over the other side into that more hands-on. And we make the own ice creams, and we got a great baker that I don't make bread because I've got two great bakers to choose from. We use Alex Gooch, based in Hay and he's won best sourdough in the world, sort of 7-8 years ago. Yeah. So I'm never going to win a best sourdough in the world award, so I've got to do someone who did. Yeah. And a lot of people appreciate that. I'd just like a few more people to appreciate it. Yeah. But it's changing that perception. So, and the other thing is, I take the role of an employer very, very seriously. I've got these young people's careers. I used to say I'm the same age as most of their parents. I'm older than most of their parents now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I take it very seriously that I've got these young people's careers for a short period of time in my hands. And it's a great responsibility, And sometimes when I give someone a bit of a hard time, I'm not horrible, but I can be a bit sarcastic and a little bit short and sharp. And I think, I don't want to be a nasty person. I'd say to you, I don't want to be. I've done all that when I was younger. I used to get all shirty and throw the odd thing and blah blah blah. I'm not like that now because kids ground you. Having kids and so I don't want someone talking to my kids like that. No, I don't. I want to speak to them in a respectful manner and say, look, that isn't the way you do it, you plum. Do you know what I mean? But they're going to get a little of a plum in there somewhere or whatever. Yeah.
A little bit of a ribbing.
Yeah, but it's like you've got to instill the confidence because otherwise you're chipping away at your own foundations. Otherwise, you're self-damaging. And so that's a great. And also, these people have financial commitments. They need an income. So as long as they all understand, we're all in the same boat here. We're all in the same raft, trying to paddle it up at the moment. A shit stream up, seriously uphill with what is going on politically at the moment. Don't want to open that can of worms, but everyone is feeling it at the moment. Everyone, and no one knows until we get the general election out of the way. We got the Brexit thing of what's going to happen. Small businesses. We've got tax changes. Whoever gets in, blah blah blah. I mean, like I've already said, I'm already getting raped already, so it can't do any more damage to me.
Of course, yeah.
But it's all everyone's taxes. So everyone's trying to make a living and make a life. And my sous chef is just getting married next year. They bought a house. I want his job to be safe. And like we started doing the small plates and the beautiful bar that we built, the rustic bar. And, it's not taken off as much as I want it to because it's really designed for local people to come out, bite to eat, I don't know, £30, £35, whatever, less or whatever, glass of wine each, cut small plates. I mean, you can be in and out for 25 quid. It's not like, let's get all dressed up and go out for dinner and, table of four, you're not going to see much change out of 200 quid, are you, really? For about average, isn't it? £50 a head, wine, 3 courses. It's not like that, but it's like getting people. And I've created the problem because we are a restaurant, people book, they come to a destination, but it's like, I'm introduce something that it's not a booking thing. It's like, let's just pop out for a bite to eat. But the people that booked didn't come in for that. So they walk straight past the bar and look at them. Oh, yeah, that's nice. But, hey, at the end of the day, they spend more money with coming to the restaurant. Yeah. But I still want I like the small plates thing. And that's something I'd like to develop. All chefs like small plates because it's a good way to eat. But I want to do it in Cardiff. And I want, like my bar is now, I don't want that without the restaurant behind it, just a kitchen. Where people come in, like it's in the continent, when you go and have the...
Arafina style?
Yeah, like that. I went to San Sebastian early in the year with some really good chef friends of mine. And to have all the little, just the pinchos, the little just toasties and things like that sort of thing. But in the evening, you see families coming out, they're doing it. I mean, it's a different culture. It's lovely, and I don't see why over a period of time that couldn't happen over here. And I'd like to be part of that.
I can't imagine people liking small plates in Wales.
You can have lots of them though, can't you? See, that's the thing. You see,
you can actually just bulk it out. Yeah,
I think variety is good. Having a small amount of something, And sometimes when you have that super fine dining food and it's sort of like multiple courses, I don't mind that so much because it
has its place.
The variety's there. And when I had a 25-course tasting menu at Gareth Ward, it's absolutely incredible. There's every course just sort of like just exploding the flavours and the way they just ferment things and do this and do that. If you go to that bit in the middle where you have like it's like a 3-4 courser or 3 courses in fine dining, it's like £90 3 courses, like flipping hell, and you get it, and it is an absolute beautiful work of art. But it's like there's nowhere near enough food in that plate to make me stop feeling hungry.
Yeah,
I would say if you want to make a few quid, maybe open a kebab shop round the corner from a Freestar. I mean.
That's a good idea. Concept there. Yeah. So let's move on to some quick fire questions.
Yes.
Favourite food?
Oh, food that I haven't cooked.
All right. And something someone's cooked for you.
Yeah, that's one of the things you don't get invited out often enough because people go, I'm not inviting him, he's a chef and that. I like Italian. I like a nice Italian style lasagna. Not like sloppy English one that self levels. Every time you take a spoon of it, it'll be the same flat again. I like a nice Chinese and Chinatown. I like things that I don't cook myself really. I do like a nice burger, but we started doing one here now, which is insanely good. If I don't say so myself, but yeah, I like Indian.
Yeah,
I don't know a lot about Thai because people say, and I don't cook it. I don't know enough about it, but I like eating it.
Yeah, you like eating it.
Yeah, so anything like I don't do myself.
What ingredient do you dislike the most?
Well, that's an easy one because right at the moment I had a goodie bag from the OFM Awards, and it's the biggest goodie bag on the circuit. Not like I do the circuit or ever get many goodie bags. It's just famously just ridiculously large, and in there's some black garlic, the paste anything. And I've had it before, and I'm like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Is it because it spreads nicely or whatever? It doesn't even taste like garlic. It tastes like vinegar to me. It's like.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I'm not a big fan.
So favourite restaurant?
Oh, it's hard. It's like, I've got 3 kids. It's like, which one's your favourite? So I'd say my favourite restaurants. So in Wales, we got the amazing Sean Hill at Walnut Tree, but I love Wright's Independent Food Emporium, which is just no bookings, blackboard, just local produce, just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You could drop it at Notting Hill and they'd be millionaires within a year. But, here it's a different story, but it's more, lots of labour, but brilliant. In London, it'd be a toss-up between River Cafes and Scott's.
Yeah.
Equal, yeah.
What chef do you think is rocking it at the moment?
Again, when you get to a certain age, you sort of lose touch a little bit. I'd have to say, without a shadow of a doubt, Tom Brown. Loved
Cornerstone.
Cornerstone. And I'm really, really looking forward to Johnny Lakes and his business partner and co-investor, the sommelier whose name evades me, when their new place opening up, because I think I've seen the sort of menus in the cage. It looks really cool.
Who's been an inspiration to you over the years?
Been an inspiration to me, well, Oliver for sure, Allan Passard, Marco, generally the people I've worked with.
Who would you like to dine with, dead or alive?
There's answers that are going to get you in trouble, and then there's answers sort of like be boring and say, go
for the ones that will get you into trouble.
Kirsty Gallagher, for sure, because she is absolutely proper sauce. Jodie Foster, another one. I know she bats with her side, but that's.
I was going to say,
fine.
she's really good.
That's absolutely fine with me.
Right,
that's fine. I just watch. That's fine.
Yeah.
George Michael, love him to bits.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'd be actors or something like that. You know, it wouldn't be chefs because you can sort of do that anyway. Really.
Yeah. But you'd want someone else to cook for you, so you can just chat to these people, obviously.
Yeah. So I mean, do you want to know to cook for me?
Go on. Who would cook for you then?
Someone like Mark Hicks.
Yeah.
Because it's just, proper gutsy food. And he's got an amazing, I challenge anyone to have a broader knowledge of British ingredients and cooking than Mark Hicks.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh my God.
We can finish on this one.
What advice would I give to my younger self? I don't think I've made any huge mistakes in my career or life, really. I mean, there's things you might have done a little bit differently, but look, I think the advice I would give to myself, but also, it's go through life, you know, I said before, you get a lot further with sugar than you do vinegar. You reap what you sow. You know, if you're going to tell fibs, you better have a good memory, because, you know, be honest. Just be honest. And I think that's sort of advice my old man said to me years ago. He's not with us anymore, but, you know, years ago, and he said, when I was a kid, he said, I think I was at college, he said, no one can ever make you do anything you don't want to do. And that sometimes presents you with a really hard position, because you might enjoy something, but you're terrified of saying something. And sometimes it's like the moment when I was called to a meeting, from a site meeting at the canteen. I was called to a meeting with Marco at Harvey's. When I'd left Harvey's then, I was setting up the canteen, and we were probably a couple of months away from opening the canteen. So I was doing stuff there. I was being paid a retainer. I wasn't working ridiculously long hours at all. And this chap said, "Oh, Marco wants to see you." And I was like, "Yeah, I know what that's about." And he's like, "No, you don't." I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, he's going to want me to go work at Harvey's just until the canteen opens, because I know so-and-so had left. He went, "Yeah, he does, yeah." I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to do it." He said, "Yeah, right." He said,
so he just thought he was, yeah.
He said, "Yeah, you are." I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "So you're going to tell Marco you're not going to work there?" I said, "Yeah." So we walked all the way back from Chelsea Harbour, across Bellevue, across Wandsworth Common to Harvey's. Get there, Marco comes out. "Hello, dear boy." I sit down. So he sat down in his two chairs.
I love the way you did the accent.
"Dear boy." And so he sat there. He said, "I need to ask you a favour." And I said, "Oh, okay." Knowing what he was going to say. "So I need you to come back and work at Harvey's." I didn't say anything. I was thinking, "Oh my God," and I didn't respond. It was my lack of response it wasn't like terribly long, but it was a point where he said, "Did you hear me?" "Well, of course I heard you. I sat right next to you." And I said, "Yeah, I did, Mark." I said, "But no," I said, "I'm not going to come back and work at Harvey's." Oh my God! So he let me. He just verbally he said, "Oh, you know, I will never break bread at my table again." And very metaphorical. He loved all that. You know, it was quite interesting, quite entertaining as well. And I said, "Look, I don't exclusively work for you anymore. I work for you, Claudio Paulzay and Michael Caine." I said, "Unless I hear it from all three directors that I have to come back and work at Harvey's," I said, "I'm not going to do that." I said, "I don't want to work here again." I said, "I've done my time here. I don't want to do that again." So he threw me out of the restaurant. So I was living in Brixton at the time. I walked all the way back to Brixton.
I'm sure that was safe.
It was daylight. It was okay. But, you know, thinking about what had just happened, you know.
Yeah.
Got back there and I lived with this couple. She's an architect and he's an osteopath. And with my best friend, Tim Powell, and who was at work at the time. He was at Pont de la Tour. So the next day, Mark and I... So I didn't hear anything from Marco. The next day, Mark and I were just about to go and have a go in tennis. And we were in Jo's office, which was part of the house. And her name's Jo White. Oh. So she answered the phone and said, "Hello, Jo White." You know, she's an architect. But the look on her face, I could just tell it was Marco on the phone. And he'd said to her, "We share the same name." Like that. "What, Jo?" "You weirdo." It was quite funny. So I'm like that. I'm waving my hands going, "I'm not here now. I'm going to play tennis." So when I came back, she said, "That was a call for you." It was Marco. He said, "You need to call him." So I said, "Okay." So I called him straight away. I wasn't being disrespectful, but I mean, it's like, look, you know, it wasn't going to change in an hour or so. Anyway, so he said, "We need to talk." I said, "Okay." He said, "Come and see me. Just put the phone down. Come see me." Like that. So I walked all the way back thinking, "Oh my God, what's going to happen here?" Like that. So I get back to the Harvey's and said, John Christoph Slowick, who was the legendary front of house manager there. I mean, he's like, remember Anton de Cadenet from Eurotrash? Yeah. So he spoke French as if an English person was putting on a French accent. And John Christoph did that. He just did it to take the piss. He said, "Hello." He said, "Marco is waiting for you upstairs, huh?" So I was like, "Oh, here we go." So I was going up the stairs. It's quite tight. And I get into this little office and, you know, over a couple of periods, he's had a dog there and this and that. So it's not the most desirable smelling place in the world. So he sat in his chair like you are now. Next to him, Lisa Butcher was sat there. He was married at the time to Lisa Butcher. And there was a chair sort of positioned specifically, I don't know, 3 foot in front of Marco for me, obviously. So I came in and I sat down. And as I sat down in a way that I didn't sit down like... So, you know, like as if I was cowering and not cowering, but intimidated. Or I sat down and in a kind of relaxed way. I didn't sit down and sort of spread my legs and like, light a fag and say, what the fuck, I just sat down in quite a relaxed way. I just sort of like, right, okay, what's going to happen? And he sort of leant across to me and said, you don't give a fuck, do you? And I was like, that. What do you mean? What do you mean? He said, well, you don't give a fuck. I said, oh, I do. I said, I really do. I said, I'm more than anyone you're ever going to meet. I really do. I said, but the one thing you need to understand about me is that, and I think now I just said it, and I was like, I'm not scared of you, Marco. I said, you can, say and do what you want or whatever. So, and, and I was like, I said, if we're going to have this relationship, I said, and it's, me being a head chef of this restaurant, it's a big deal. I said, it can't be based on fear. I said, it has to be, on a mutual respect. I will work my arse off for you, and I will go through a brick wall for you. I said, but it has to be based on the fact that I'm not, being asked to be put on a pedestal, but
no. Just needs to be equal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, and that's the basis for a great working relationship. And he sort of sat back and he sort of took it away and he said, obviously made some sense because he said, I'm going to do for you what I've done for no man before. And I'm going to forgive you. And I was like, great, can we just move on? So it's great, and it was amazing. I mean, fucking hell, the canteen was bonkers. Brilliant, it was absolutely fantastic. And he was a great person to work for, and I think he's a great person. He's been so influential in this industry. I mean, the industry was so different without Marco Pierre White. And look, when he's doing things now, he's still, his name still carries so much weight. That he can put it to, franchise it and these hotels and things. There's one in Cardiff, there's one in Bath, doing St. Pierre. I mean, it's just like MPW. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, it carries weight.
And he created that. So. Fair play to him,
Well, we've come to an end, Stephen.
There we are.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for asking me. I do like to chat, as you can tell. I do digress, and I make no excuse for that.
It's all good. It's all good. So, and if people want to follow you online, they can follow you on, the Hardwick, which is on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yeah. And
if they want to follow you, they can follow you on Instagram and
Twitter. Yeah.
Would there be some more rants there, or?
Do you know what? I don't.
Not rants.
I don't want to upset people because my opinion is not shared by everybody. So no. I don't want people to think, is that twag?
No, but if people think you're being fair, then that's cool.
If I think that someone's being unfair, then I would say something like like that moment when however you look at it, Brian Webb, fantastic chef, Welsh chef based in North Wales, had a Michelin star for over 10 years. Lost his star this year. Well, he didn't lose it; he had it taken away from him. There's a difference, which I think, nothing's changed. It's like why did David Everett Matthias get demoted from 2 to 1 star? He's never missed a service in his life in a restaurant. That's just ridiculous. So anyway, and I said, that having 1 star, it's great. I mean, it's like my brother-in-law's father is a retired pilot. But he still gets posts that says Captain Nelms on it because he was always be a captain. Yeah. So you'll always be a Michelin-starred chef. No one take that away from you. But I don't think that's what really. I mean, I've done it twice. I'll never do it again. I'd be surprised if I ever did. But that's not what defines you in this life. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's more to people about that. It's about who you are as a person.
Yeah.
That's what defines you.
There's no award for that though.
No, there isn't, and I think you need to be bigger than that one. I think, what is really... my missus tells me all the time, for different reasons, she said, when you're lying there and you're taking your last breath, are you really going to think about the people that, blah, blah, said, no, you're probably not. You're going to probably think, I wish I may have been a better father and maybe a better husband because of all the time you dedicated to your career. And you didn't give it to us, and I think, maybe she's right one day, maybe I will, but, I'm conscious of that, but, I'm still, this is the provider, but I think, when you're there and you're thinking of your last moments, thinking, what really is going to be running through your mind, Where the fuck did that bus come from?
Well, Stephen, on that note, on the bus note, we'll leave it there. All right, mate. Thank you, mate.
Cheers.